Hello and welcome to Art and Insurance. Today's case takes us behind museum walls, away from exhibition halls, and into storage facilities. In moments of crisis, these hidden spaces hold far more art than the galleries themselves. Flood warnings, emergency evacuations, and thousands of vulnerable objects moved under pressure. This is the story of flood risk and evacuation of storage collections connected to the Louvre Museum. When people think of museum risk, they imagine paintings hanging on walls or sculptures displayed under glass. In reality, the majority of museum collections are not on display at all. They are stored underground, off-site, or in specialized reserves designed for long-term preservation. These spaces are usually invisible to the public, but they are central to insurance exposure. During periods of flooding in Paris, rising water levels in the Seine triggered emergency protocols across multiple cultural institutions, including the Louvre. Although the museum itself sits above immediate flood zones, large portions of its stored collections were located in areas considered vulnerable to water ingress. The response was swift and massive. Thousands of artworks and artifacts were evacuated from storage facilities within a short time frame. Crates were assembled, transport routes activated, conservation teams worked alongside logistics specialists. What looked like a preventive measure was, in fact, a high-risk operation. From an insurance perspective, evacuation is not neutral. Moving art creates exposure. Handling increases risk. Packing under time pressure increases risk. Transportation, even over short distances, increases risk. Yet doing nothing would have been worse. This is where art insurance becomes a tool of crisis management rather than compensation. Stored collections are insured differently from displayed works. Insurance policies distinguish between exhibition risk and storage risk. Storage locations are evaluated for environmental control, security, fire protection, and, critically, natural hazard exposure. Flood risk is one of the most complex hazards to insure. Unlike fire or theft, flooding is slow, systemic, and often predictable. That predictability affects coverage. Insurers expect institutions to mitigate known flood risks through location choice, elevation, barriers, and emergency planning. Failure to do so can limit or exclude coverage. In the Louvre case, preparedness mattered. The existence of evacuation plans, trained staff, and prearranged transport reduced potential losses. Insurers evaluate not only the outcome, but the process. Damage avoided through proper response is just as important as damage paid for after an event. However, not all damage is immediate. Flood-related exposure includes secondary effects: elevated humidity, condensation, microbiological growth, chemical reactions triggered by moisture. Even if artworks never touched water, environmental instability can cause delayed deterioration. From an insurance standpoint, this raises a critical question. When does prevention become a claim? Costs associated with emergency evacuation, temporary storage, climate stabilization, and post-event condition monitoring may be covered under certain policies. These are often classified as loss mitigation expenses, actions taken to prevent insured loss. But coverage is never automatic. Insurers examine whether the evacuation was reasonable, proportionate, and necessary. They assess whether the risk was imminent or speculative. They review whether storage locations complied with declared risk profiles. Another key issue is valuation. Stored collections often include works with limited public exposure and uncertain market value. Some objects are priceless, culturally, but untested commercially. Insurance values must balance scholarly significance with realistic replacement or restoration cost, a challenge magnified when thousands of items are involved. Responsibility is also layered. Ownership may rest with the state, custody with the museum. Storage facilities may be managed by separate entities. Insurance programs must align all of these roles. In flood scenarios, ambiguity in responsibility can delay response and complicate claims. The Louvre evacuations demonstrated a core truth of art insurance. The greatest concentration of risk is often where no visitors go. The flood threat to Louvre storage collections shows that art risk does not end at the gallery door. It extends underground into warehouses, archives, and reserves, where thousands of objects depend on planning rather than visibility. Art and insurance is where investigation meets professional risk management. For expert support in art insurance, valuation, claims handling, or dispute resolution, contact us. Thank you for watching Art and Insurance. See you in the next video.